Dude, we're recording, and Steve almost got a very big burp on this. That would have been nasty. I hope I can edit that out. But if not, there's your entertainment.
It was a coffee burp.
It was, yeah. We got us a mic. By us, I mean Steve, because y'all can hear me perfectly fine, because I'm loud.
Loud.
And we just finished up a conversation about why Steve found a great deal in a tractor and why Steve's not going to get said tractor right now. Because, don't drop your mouth to flirt me, because I've already bought him all kinds of things. And y'all be knowing. If you know, you know. Right? Okay, all right, you guys. So today we have a very good question that I had somebody reach out to me about, and that's what I think I want to talk about with you guys tonight, and Steve. And if we get through it before time is up, then we will most definitely answer some of the other questions that we have gotten. To those of you who couldn't hear Steve very well on the other podcast, we are so sorry. Bless his heart, but we have got this mic, and hopefully tonight is going to go so much better. So I got this question, and I'm going to read it to you guys, and then I'm going to let Steve open up the conversation. So, it says, my friend used to go to church, and she recently confided in me that over the past several months, she has been struggling to believe anything to do with God or the Word. This is very new to me, and she said she has come to the acceptance that she truly doesn't believe. I don't know what to say, what to tell her. She doesn't understand why God allows so much suffering and why He lets children die all the time. Those with dementia waste away with no minds in nursing homes when He can just come back and take away all of that at any time. Why can't He take away suffering? So, I love this question. I think it was very good. I promise if it sounded like I giggled in the middle of that, it's because Steve won't quit trying to pull strings off my stuff. He's very ADHD, and he drives me insane. But that is such a good question, and I'm really excited about it. So, I'm going to let you open up. What do you think?
Well, I think God allows struggling because that helps us grow. Not only as Christians, but as people, you know. And as far as the dementia thing, you know, it's sad. I lost my dad through dementia, both my grandparents on his side, 2 aunts on his side. But it's like they go back in time. But, you know, I guess you have to look at the good in everything. They got to relive some of the best parts of their lives in a way, is the way I kind of look at it, especially with my dad. You know, there at the end, he got to where he didn't even recognize me as his son. He thought I was one of his friends from school. You know, he'd ask me questions like, why didn't you join the Army with us and stuff? And at first it broke my heart, but then I realized, you know, if you knew my dad, you know that joining the Army was the glory days of his life, and he was reliving them in his mind, and you know, it wasn't so sad for him. He wasn't sad about it, so you know, it was sad for me, but not for him.
Well, and I think a lot of like dementia patients too, though, some of them actually do become like mean, and it is pretty traumatizing and stuff like that.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, my experience with it is my dad just, you know, he got to a point where, you know, just normal daily functions was hard for him to do, but I try to focus on the good of it, and I'm so happy for him that he got to relive those glory days in a way.
Yeah, I think too. So like, I guess it's really easy for somebody just to say, you know, focus on the good. Because clearly if you're having these kind of thoughts, you're not focusing on the good. You're actually focusing like on the bad of everything. And while what Steve is saying is true, you do have to focus on the good. You have to be willing to see the good side of things. I think we are just looking at it wrong. First off, I think we need to remember that we live on this side, not that. Like, we live on an earth that is run over by the enemy. But heaven is the place where we go when everything is healed. If everything was healed here, why would we have a need for Jesus in the first place? Why would we have a need to change? Why would we have a need or a want to go to someplace better if this place was already enough? And it ain't. And it ain't. And that's my first thing, is that I do say it a lot too. I think people blame God for the enemy's work. I think the enemy comes and does things, and he was kicked out of heaven. So, I mean, he comes and does things, and instead of us recognizing that it's him, we simply say that God did this. It's God's fault. It's God's fault that this happened. When it's not. I hate that there are children dying of hunger and cancer. It's horrible. There are adults that are going hungry and dying of cancer. I think that we have a limited perspective, and it's not our job to know it all first and foremost. But also, we don't get to know these things, and some of these things, they're just not for us to know. And we got to be okay with that. It's just not for us to know. And in the midst of suffering, that's what this world wants you to focus on. Miracles are happening too. People are being healed too. People are overcoming starvation too. People are overcoming these obstacles that you are seeing as obstacles. But I also think one of the big things too is, like, we have, like, consequences for our sin, right?
Yes.
So some of the bad things that are happening is because of something we did.
Sometimes, yeah. Everybody's got an appointed time, and unfortunately there's no way of knowing, if it's going to come at a young age or at an old age or in your prime. And sometimes cancer is what takes you, but you can't really say you blame God for it, because that person, even though they may be passing, they may suffer a little. Well, some suffer a lot before they go, but when they pass, they're in glory. Yes.
Yeah, and
it's just a hard situation, hard subject.
It is a hard subject. It's a really hard subject, but you know what I just thought about? What about all the stories in the Bible? He could have stopped Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego from even going into the fire.
He did.
But going into the fire was what changed the heart of those around him. That's good.
Sometimes
Joseph.
That cancer patient may not be going through it because of anything they done or
anything,
or anything,
but maybe it's to get to the nurse or the doctor.
Yep.
Ooh, that's good.
Or the sister or brother.
Or the brother, or bringing the family back together after it's been, like, separated. Yep. What about Joseph too? He could have stopped Josephus. Y'all know I can't do brothers from selling him into slavery. Yep. He could have stopped Joseph from going into slavery, from being in prison. He could have stopped all of that anytime he wanted to, but he didn't. Why? He was preparing Joseph.
Back to the dementia thing, it just hit me. All through my life, my dad claimed to be an atheist until he got dementia. And even though sometimes he was living in the present and sometimes he was living in the past, all the time he praised God at the end. So somewhere along that way he found God.
Yeah. So sometimes, the bad things in our life happen to change the people around us, to make God seen. Like, almost in all the stories that you read in the Bible, it's not a story of perfection. It's not a story of God rescued me from this, and this. Sometimes God let them go into these situations, and because of that, other people were saved. Other people were changed. Joseph going into slavery, and then being in prison, all of this taught him everything he needed to know and have to go into the rest of his life, right? But then not only that, this whole time, that whole 12 years, He was preparing Joseph to be the exact person that was going to save them all from a famine. Like, he had to go through that. So, like, I think sometimes, maybe you're not y'all are just seeing the bad things as being bad things, when in reality, those things were sent for you so that it could change the people around you, so that it could change the hearts of those who you encounter. Maybe sometimes that's why, you go through those things. The Lord does have the ability to take and give, but it comes with recognizing that everything in this world is His. The house you have, the health you have, the family you have, the children, the husband, the wife, everything belongs to Him. So at any point of time, He can take or He can give. And that's on His time, not yours. So maybe it's a fear in the Lord thing. Maybe you just don't have the fear of the Lord yet to understand that is what it is. There is a lot of suffering in this world, but suffering does a lot of good. Look at the story of Job. Job suffered. We all know Job's story as he suffered, and then in the end he gave back more than he lost, right? But did you also know that all that suffering happened to Job because Job had a pride problem and it needed to be corrected? And through his story, it became corrected. So sometimes suffering is because we need to change.
How many times have you heard of people saying they got saved at a young age and then they got kind of caught up in church traditional things? Mm-hmm. They, that Roman road was taught to them. They said they accepted Jesus, but nothing changed.
Yep.
Nothing changed about them. Sometimes people may profess Jesus as their Savior, but they don't truly believe it with their heart. And then, they see things in life, happening and stuff, and then that casts doubt to them. But if you truly, truly give your heart to the Lord, you'll see change in yourself. You'll make change in yourself.
Oh, and I think the enemy knows that people question suffering and they're blaming God for His work. So, because I've been doing this for a while now, right? And I see this as a very common thing that comes up, right? Why do people suffer? Almost on all of my TikToks that I do, all of them, that is their favorite one. Well, if there was such a God, why would He allow people to suffer? Why would He allow people to die of hunger? There's children starving and that, all of that. That's what they say. That's their main go-to. You want to know why? The enemy knows that's the part that he can attack the most.
And those kids starving, that's all our fault.
That's all our fault, yeah.
This world's a big place, but it ain't so big that we can't take care of everybody as far as making sure everybody has a means to eat. That land over in Africa they could be taught to farm it and raise just as much corn and wheat and stuff as anybody else. It's just nobody's took the time to actually do that. They'd rather collect the money and then, all the executives separated.
Right, but so many people are willing to say, why is this happening? Well, have you tried to stop it?
Yeah.
Have you decided that this is the change you want to see in the world and you went after it? You know what I mean? It is all of our faults. All of us could do better, but the enemy wants you to focus on those things because he knows that that's your weak spot. He knows that is the spot that he can attack that will make you question that will make you question whether God is real or not. And it's one of the most common ones. Because, you see, but listen, here's what I want to propose. Thinking that there would just not be any suffering. Suffering was all that Jesus was going to do. Jesus was being hunted to be killed as a child.
Yep.
There was suffering even when it was Jesus. Jesus had to suffer bad on a cross and before the cross, beaten, all the things, just for us. So if there could have been a way made for us without suffering, there would have been. Suffering is our fault. It is us as humans who create the suffering because we are born evil. We are evil by nature. The Bible even says that. So suffering didn't come because God sent it. It came because we came. It came because we create the suffering. We create the conflicts. We create people like us is who killed Jesus. It's our fault. We created the suffering. We created those things, and we might not have created cancer and dementia, but those things can still be used for good. But it is our fault that these bad things were happening. The world was supposed to be perfect, and that's what it was until Adam and Eve allowed the suffering in. They opened the door for us to be able to suffer. Like, it is a hard subject, but it's our fault we suffer. Like, we are the ones who invite suffering in. We're the ones who let it become anyway. I mean, we killed Jesus. We beat him. We nailed him to a cross. We stuck a stake up through his side. Like, and God sent Jesus, his son, to us and watched him suffer. And we're the ones who made him suffer. So suffering is our fault. It's not God's fault. It's our fault. And I think it has to do with your viewpoint. You've got to learn how to see suffering differently. You got to quit seeing it as a bad thing, but as something that could teach you a lesson. Something that could change you. Something that could change the people around you. All the suffering that I went through in this life was great. And I went through it for over a decade. But all the suffering made me who I am. And it has led so many people to the Lord. I don't think it's wise suffering here, because suffering is always going to be here. I think it's what are you going to do with your suffering, because you got a choice. You have free will. If we didn't have free will, we wouldn't have suffering. But because we are allowed to have free will, we do have suffering. And we have the free will to decide what is suffering to us. Is it something that can teach us and change us and mold us? Or is it something that we're going to let kill us slowly? Because it will.
Yeah, your suffering is actually part of your testimony.
Yep.
And, you know, a lot of people don't share their testimony of things they've been through. Not like you do. I guess, people like me, you know, can't come up with the words like Kelsey does. But, you know, the things I've been through in my life, I could probably write a book on if I had the talent to write like you. But, you know, from losing my mom to a murder in her front yard at 12 years old to, you know, being born third child of unwed couple that split up and, you know, and got her in that situation. But alcoholic dad that didn't believe in God, getting in trouble at young ages. And,
so what I'm hearing is born into suffering.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it's...
They created that environment of suffering and then brought you into it.
Yep. And, you know, almost everybody's got some kind of testimony like that if they shared, you know, more and more people would relate to. And you know, it'd be easier for people to not get into the depression and anxiety and stuff if they understood that, you know, if a lot of what they're feeling, almost everybody feels on some level. When you're thinking it's just me and all, it puts you in that anxiety and depression, and causes people to have to get medicated and isolated.
Isolation, though, that's a whole other thing. Like isolation, the enemy wants you to do that.
Yeah.
Because the Bible instructs us that we're not supposed to be alone, so to say. We're supposed to surround ourselves with good people, encouraging people, and stuff like that. So when the enemy is telling you to isolate yourself, now granted, the Lord will tell you to isolate yourself too, but it will be for a whole nother purpose. It will be to teach you something, to strengthen something within you so that he can speak to you without all the noise. All right. We see many people in the Bible. Some of them were called to dry brooks where they stayed there by themselves and were fed by crows and a little dry brook. All right. And we see people live in caves because the Lord sent them there. But no matter what, those people realized that the Lord was there with them the whole time. So the Lord will call you, into isolation so that he can teach you. But see, the enemy will trick you because the enemy knows that too. And he isn't going to want you to isolate so that you can get closer to the Lord. He wants you to isolate yourself so you'll get further and further into your depression. Yep. I'm all alone. There's no one here. Nobody cares about me. Nobody loves me. Nobody
knows what I've been through.
Nobody knows what I've been through. Nobody understands. That type of isolation will kill you.
Yep.
And the enemy knows that. So he wants you to isolate yourself. But in the Bible, we are not meant to be like lonely soldiers traveling through life by ourselves. No matter what, when God called those people to isolate, he always called them out of isolation at some point or another and let them meet people. Right?
He brought people to
them. Yep. To be with them. Like Elijah, he called him out of the brook just to go be with a widow and her son. Yep. Like, good stuff. So, that's a twofold story. Because not only did Elijah need the widow, but the widow needed Elijah. And he called Elijah out of that dry brook to the woman who was also isolated with her son. So, he brought him out, and he brought him to her. Yep. So, like, both of those situations.
Can you imagine the depression and all she was feeling down to her last little bit of everything?
And knew that her and her son were going to die.
Yep.
Of starvation. Ooh, I'm going to use that the next time on that comment out. I'm going to use that. But, because that's what happens. Yes, there are people dying of the starvation. But listen, and it is our fault. But there are people over there trying to help. There is. But you're just focused on the wrong part. Instead of seeing the people over there trying to help, you're focused on, well, they're still dying. But what about the ones who aren't dying because help was sent?
Yeah.
It's, what are you looking at? Listen, I'm a firm believer that the media, they only want you to look at the bad. Honestly, for the longest time, you used to watch the news. Even when I continuously said this, I wouldn't watch the news because all they want you to do, and all they share with you is a lot of bad, right? So for the longest time, Steve would watch it. I would not. It'd make me angry because all they want to show you is the bad stuff. But you ain't even been watching it anymore. You ain't watching it no more.
No, I just flip it on and see what the weather's going to be, but most of the time that's a lie, too.
That's a lie, too. If they say it is raining, it's not raining. I love that. But it's what you're choosing to focus on. Because I can promise you, even though there is suffering, there is good things happening too. So, maybe we can move on to a couple other questions that I've had for people. And I hope this has really answered and helped maybe some of you that have been having these questions. But here's what I propose. And we'll see how this works. The next time somebody tells you that they don't believe simply because of all the suffering in the world. Maybe, I'm a big person. I like to answer questions with questions, okay? Maybe you give them a question. They say, I don't believe in God because of all the suffering. So maybe you would say, well, where does all the good come from then? Because, yes, there are people dying of dementia. But there are some people that are also being healed. Yes, there are people dying of cancer. But
they're making huge breakthroughs with dementia.
Yeah. And you know what? Kids dying of cancer. I've seen some die and I've seen some healed. But I've also seen organizations and stuff started because of these kids. And lives changed. This life is bigger than just about us. And I think that that's what people forget. It's bigger than us. It's not just about us. It is about others too. And sometimes we die so that others will be changed. My late husband dealt a lot with mental illness. And that is eventually what took him from us, right? Do I believe that the enemy had a hold on him 110%? I do. But do I believe that his death changed my life? Yes, I do. And do I believe that because of his death, a lot of people have accepted Jesus to become their Christ and Savior? I sure do.
Yep.
So it was bigger than him. It was bigger than what he was battling. Because of what he ended up doing, it changed me. And because it changed me, it changed others. It became a ripple effect. So, the next time somebody is telling you that they don't believe simply because of suffering, I want to challenge you to question them. You know, I hear what you're saying, but what about the good things that are happening too? Where does that come from? And see where the conversation leads. And I will say this too. I do kind of feel like, I really don't feel like it's about suffering at all when they say that. I think it's about hurt. They're hurt.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was just thinking is through his death, your suffering or hurt gave you the courage to do what you do today.
Yep, it did. Yep. And I think that it's more like the suffering thing. When people say there's no God because they're suffering, I think they're only saying that because they're suffering.
Yeah.
Like, you're hurting so bad that you are just now all you're seeing is suffering, and in turn you're saying there's no God because they're suffering. Honestly, if you will really look at it, everybody who is saying that God isn't real because of suffering is, in fact, suffering. They are going through something or dealing with something, and they think it's unfair. So what are they doing in turn? They're blaming God, and when they're blaming God, they're blaming it not. They're trying to take their eyes off them and put it on somewhere else, because they're trying to say I'm suffering and I don't understand why. But instead, they're turning the words around and they're saying they're all suffering. Why? But really, they're suffering on the inside. I think it's actually an inside problem. Like, I think they're suffering and don't know how to escape it.
Makes me think of that movie Passion of the Christ we was watching the other night. Every time they would rear back and whip, you know.
I can't watch that movie.
He was taking your suffering, your sin, away. You know.
Yeah, that movie's hard to watch.
His stripes, you were healed.
Yeah, well, he had stripes. I'm telling you, I couldn't finish that movie. It's called Passion of Christ. I'm just telling you right now, it's a movie that's rated R, and I couldn't do it. I'm not a type of person that watches a lot of TV, but when I do watch shows and like not justice is happening, it fires me up inside and hurts me so bad. And that is all that movie is about like Jesus is suffering. And
I'm
not
sure
only
most of our listeners have
seen it, I couldn't watch it all the way
Just
through.
your young ones hadn't.
All the youngins, well, I couldn't watch it. I couldn't watch it simply because, you know, and then I felt shameful for not being able to watch it because, like, I'm the one who killed him. You know what I mean? But, and it almost hurt me that I couldn't watch it because, like, it was so hard to watch that I couldn't believe they were doing that to him. But, even, like, I don't know, even the people, even just like Peter, like, it hurt him to see him and go through that. And he still denied him because he was scared it would happen to him. Yeah. Like, that movie's rough. I do and don't recommend. I don't know. It's really hard to watch, but that's my take on the suffering. Do you have any like final words that you want to say about it?
No, I guess you've pretty much covered everything.
I know. Sorry, I talked a lot more than you.
Yeah.
But it's hard.
Still loud too. You keep bouncing the reds over here.
Listen, the mic ain't for me. It's for you. Like, put it all the way over there because I just don't need it that close.
Look, you're still hitting reds.
I'm gonna beat you up when we get off of here.
Okay.
Let's see. I did talk a lot more than Steve on that one. So sorry, my friends, but simply because I think like I'm kind of the teacher, and Steve has great thoughts, but maybe this just isn't one of the subjects that he has great thoughts on, so to say. Like, lots of words, maybe. Because he has great thoughts. It is more along the lines of, like, maybe he just don't know the right way to say what he...
Yeah. Most of the time, I've got him in, too, to think about things.
Okay.
Too. And in this situation, it's, you know...
You had a week and you forgot.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I was sick.
Right. I was, too.
I was on my deathbed.
You wasn't.
I was man sick.
I know, you don't say man sick. I can't. I've worked through my sickness. You were man sick, and I've been working this whole time.
I slaved all the way through.
You are so crazy. No, you didn't. Oh my gosh. Okay. A couple more questions, because we usually do about 40 minutes or so. Somebody said, we had this question. Financially, did y'all discuss how you would both like it? I know many people believe everything should be together and others believe separate. What did y'all decide and why? Coming from an abusive relationship, it's a rough topic for me personally. My current husband is wonderful. It's just stressful for me. When you are married, you become one. And when you become one in everything.
I was getting ready to say the only time it should be separate is if you were saving money to leave.
Yeah, I just knew he was getting ready to say saving money for a tractor. I was going to knock you right off that chair. No, saving money to leave. Are you saving money to leave me?
We ain't separate money.
Huh?
We ain't
yeah, we don't got it. Are you sure?
Yeah.
You got a money bag downstairs that you gave Emma. Was you putting money in that?
I've had that for years.
I'm kidding.
I got everything down there.
I know you do. You need it, Steve's got it. Just give him a go. But the whole point of being married is becoming one. You are not one. You have to be really careful with money. I'm getting ready to launch a money course on our website and in our membership. You got to be careful with money. Money is a sensitive topic. But it's also an important one. Money will separate and divide you if you let it. When you separate from everybody and become one because you got married, you share everything. Everything is shared, and that's it. That's it. It should be no question. Nothing is yours. Nothing is his. It's y'all's. And y'all are going to work together to deal with your money. Like, I have been in a relationship where it wasn't like that, and it was very hard, and it was a very big struggle, and it hurt my feelings a lot. It caused a lot of division, and that relationship didn't work out. So,
yeah, well, we kind of had separate bank accounts and stuff at first, but
yeah,
eventually, as we drew closer, we combined everything. And I've always been taught that, you combine everything and then one person kind of takes over as far as making sure the bill's paid, and the other one worked to help put the money there to pay the bills.
Right.
Because if one person's taking care of the bills, they can keep up with what's getting paid and what ain't. To where if both of you trying to do it, then things get double paid or double left out. So.
Well, and I think if you have a relationship where y'all both want to be in control of the money, so like we don't have one of those relationships. Steve don't really care.
Yeah, I don't care.
I take care of all that.
But
I'm also the one good with money, which is why I keep it and manage it.
Yeah, I'm terrible with money.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah, obviously. But
if I had it, I'd have a tractor.
We would have a tractor and our power wouldn't be on because you'd spend all your money buying parts for a tractor.
Probably.
Right. You'd forget what days these bills were due. But if you have two people who like want to be in control of the money, I would highly suggest like having a time that you sit down every single week or every month, depending on how you pay your bills, and go over everything together. Like, realize that y'all are in this together, so you need to go over it together. You both need to be on the same page about what bills are due when, how much they cost. Have a planner together and do all of that together. And that way nobody is in control and you're not letting that divide you. Because if you don't have a good system in place here, it will divide your marriage and it can hurt your marriage in the long run. So,
big thing is be honest with each other about what you owe too when you get together. Because, or like, especially for men, if they do any kind of mechanical work or auto body or whatever, there's these things called tool trucks.
Yeah, that got us into a lot of trouble.
They're kind of like taco trucks with tool stuff. They come by every week. And, I mean, if you try to hide something like that from your spouse, it just causes a big conflict, you know.
Tell us how you know.
It took me a long time to understand, but yeah, I've paid several
thousands
of dollars on tools over the years. Still paying a few thousand more, but
yeah,
I got tools for any job needs to be done. Huh?
Right, call Mr. Fix-It. Right, most of them have dust on them, you guys. Dust. Straight up dust. He takes his blower that I bought him and he blows them all off so that they don't have dust on them. But
how's a body?
I know he loves his tools. I let him have the one thing he loves, but he's not allowed to buy anymore. Not off that tool truck. I tell you what. If I see the tool truck, I make him run the other way. I'm telling you what. But yes, and I think you need to have rules in your. I
should buy a tool truck.
You are. Yeah, that'd be actually a good investment.
It would.
Yeah, it'd be very good. We can talk about that. Okay. I think you need to have rules too with your money. So like Steve comes to me for all the things when he wants to like buy something or whatnot. I don't do that. Well, I do and don't. So if it is something big, if it is a big purchase, we talk about it. Anything big gets talked about before we ever purchase it, and we both have to agree on it. Now, we kind of have this rule of thumb that if it's under $100, we don't have to tell the other one. If it's under $100, it's okay. But like, if it became a problem, and say you was ordering under $100 every day, then clearly that's a problem. So like, I just think you need to have rules, and especially if you are. So me and Steve are, you know. We're blessed from where we used to be and who we used to be. We've lived paycheck to paycheck. And Lord has brought us a very long way, so we get to be more flexible now. But now we have been where some of you are. That calls for like very good money management planning. So in that case, I would maybe, you see what your bills are, you sit down together, you work that out, you see what kind of money y'all both have, and then maybe your spending money needs to be cash. And that's what you get. And when you're out for that week or whatnot. Like, definitely take some finance courses. But to simply answer your question, when you become married, you become one. That is one in everything. Decision making, money, bills, everything. Right? And if you separate, the key point here is if you let money divide you, it will.
I'd say if a couple wanted to keep their checking accounts separate, then they at least need to get a bill pay account that's joint.
That was one of the best financial decisions I ever made for our family.
Yeah.
Me and Steve, I'll tell y'all a quick story. So at one point, we did find ourselves in a very bad financial situation. We knew that we had good money coming in, but for some reason we were always broke. And right. And we were always broke, and it was so bad. And I was like, this just don't make any sense. So we had to sit down together and really be honest about what the problem was. And then we contacted some of our close friends and family that we knew was really good with money, wouldn't judge us, but would help guide us along the way. And we came up with a very good solution. And one of the best things that we ever did is we opened a bank account simply for paying the bills. We had a bank account for spending money, and a bank account for the bills, and a savings. So, and both of our names are on all three of these, right? We share the spending money, and then every week we would calculate how much we needed to put back for bills. We'd get paid. We'd put that in the bill pay account. Whatever was left over, some of it goes into savings, and some of it's for spending. We were always on the same page, and ever since we've ever done that, our bills have always been paid.
Yeah,
They're just...
We hadn't worried about bills.
In a really long time. Well, you haven't. You don't worry about that. I check on the bills
I
every week. But I check on the bills every week. But we don't have to worry about it because we have set up that bank account to where as long as the money's in there before the date, it's coming out. We good. It's stress-free and we're good to go, right? So a bill pay account is a very, very, I think it's one of the best decisions we ever made as far as finances go for me and Steve. Let's see. We'll do one more. I think there was one more. Holly wants to know, I'm going to call Holly out. How do we study together as a married couple? And somebody said working together as a team. I think we need to save the working together as a team for next time because that'll be a really good topic. But how do you study together as a married couple? I'll let you start.
Well, we used to do a lot better than we do now. We used to do a morning devotion, and we'd both read and then talk about it. Now I pretty much follow along in the membership.
He's a member.
Coffee talk.
That's funny.
I sat down in my little basement down there. I got my King James Baptist Bible on one side and then my CSB on the other, and according to whatever is going on that day is which Bible I use.
That is so funny. We do try our best to sit down and eat dinner at night, and we all read and talk together.
Yeah, we do with the kids. We'll all read one of the stories in their Bible a lot of times, and
we like to talk about it
and discuss it. And then during the day, Kelsey will be studying something and she'll mention it, and then we'll get in a discussion about it.
Yep.
On the days I ain't annoying her.
Right.
And she will talk to me.
I talk to you every day, just sometimes it looks different than others.
Yeah. It look a lot different.
I love that. I think if you are newly studying together, I highly recommend studying together. And at some point of the day, you should be studying together. No, me and Steve don't do that, but I study the Bible a lot. So it's like he said, I study a lot. He follows along with the coffee talks and stuff. So usually those are where I'm studying at. So I just kind of bring it up, and then me and him kind of talk about it together. I do think we need to get better, and we need to do some sort of reading together. It is just the whole schedule thing for us as far as how much I study and how much I teach, because I teach a lot. But I do think at some point of the day you need to have some time where you are sitting down together, reading, and then maybe just talking about what you read. One of my sweet friends, what her and her family does, and I love it, she's following along in the Bible in a year. While they eat dinner, they listen to the Bible in the year, right? And then they all talk about what they just listened to and what they just read. And I think that is the best thing ever. And it's really great, which is kind of similar to what we do, except we read a story out of the children's Bible instead of letting the regular Bible read to us. But I think that's a very good option as far as studying together. And just don't ever forget to pray for one another, because I did see something on TikTok yesterday, and I loved it. And it said, find you a spouse that's not scared to go on a spiritual warfare mission for you because they see you battling spiritually. You should strive for that. I like that. If you see that your husband or your wife is struggling spiritually, you need to be ready to go into a spiritual warfare battle for them and be praying and praying and praying for them. I think that should be your goal, for real. Because oftentimes, even in marriages, I think like you're dealing with things that you don't even realize that your spouse is dealing with. You know? And because of that, it kind of maybe starts arguments or fights or such. And you need to know. You need to recognize the signs when they are going into a spiritual battle. And you need to hit your knees and be ready to pray for them to get them out of it. Do you have anything you want to say?
No, I'm good right there.
You sure? Mm-hmm. But they like hearing from you.
I don't like talking.
But you need to learn how to talk. We do this because...
sound like a country.
You do not sound like a country. What's wrong with you? If y'all are looking for a professional podcast, this isn't it. This ain't gonna be it. This ain't gonna be where you at. Go maybe go to the next one, because this one ain't it. But I think we've covered a lot of good topics tonight, and hopefully you have something to take away. Hopefully it helps you. And hopefully you learn something. Because, that's my motto. Learn one new thing every single day. And you are on your way to growing your relationship with the Lord. You ain't got nothing to say before we leave?
No, I'm good.
You're good. Okay. Bless his heart. All right, you guys. We love y'all so big. We hope you enjoyed this episode. And we will see you guys back next Wednesday for another episode. Bye, guys.